On Father's Day, my daughter gifted her stepfather a $15,000 luxury cruise package, paid for with my money stolen from my account, while tossing me a crumpled $3 lottery ticket like I was some beggar on the street. She laughed cruelly and said, "When you win, remember, Daddy, half belongs to me." My heart shattered, but I forced a smile. Little did she know, that worthless piece of paper would become worth $120 million and teach her the most expensive lesson of her life. Before we dive into this incredible story of betrayal, karma, and ultimate justice, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support means everything to us. Happy Father's Day, Dad. Rebecca's voice sliced through the warm June afternoon as she practically threw the lottery ticket across my weathered dining room table. The paper landed with a soft thud next to my coffee cup, and I could see that familiar smirk spreading across her face. The same expression she'd worn as a teenager when she thought she was being clever. I picked up the crumpled ticket with trembling fingers, my eyes struggling to focus on the numbers printed in faded blue ink. $3, the price of a gas station coffee. The same amount I used to give her for candy when she was 7 years old, back when that small gesture could light up her entire world. Very thoughtful, sweetheart, I managed, my voice catching slightly as I forced the words out. The ticket felt like tissue paper in my calloused hands that had worked 60-hour weeks for 40 years to give this ungrateful woman everything she'd ever wanted. "Oh, but wait," Rebecca interrupted, her voice rising with theatrical excitement that made my stomach churn. "I haven't given Marcus his gift yet." She reached behind her chair with the flourish of a magician, producing an elegant mahogany gift box that probably cost more than my monthly Social Security check. The ribbon alone shimmered like spun gold under my modest dining room chandelier, catching the afternoon sunlight streaming through windows I couldn't afford to replace. Marcus straightened in his chair, his perfectly tailored designer shirt catching the light. My daughter's stepfather, a man who'd swooped into our lives 5 years ago with his Wall Street money and condescending smile, had the kind of confident posture that came from never worrying about bills, never choosing between groceries and medication, never lying awake at night wondering how to make ends meet. "These," Rebecca announced with the drama of a game show host, lifting cruise tickets from their silk-lined box like they were religious artifacts. "Cost $15,000. Marcus deserves nothing but the best for everything he sacrificed for our family." The weight of my $3 lottery ticket suddenly felt microscopic. I watched Marcus examine the tickets with the satisfaction of a king reviewing his tribute, his manicured fingernails, nails that had never known honest work, tracing the gold embossing with obvious pleasure. "Now this is what I call a proper Father's Day gift, Rebecca," Marcus said, his voice dripping with that particular brand of superiority reserved for the wealthy. His pale blue eyes met mine across the table, and I saw something that made my blood run cold. Pity. "Your father certainly raised you to understand quality." The phrase hung in the air like poison gas. Around the table, my family shifted uncomfortably. My sister Martha cleared her throat nervously. My nephew David suddenly found his mashed potatoes fascinating. Even my 10-year-old grandson Tyler looked up from his phone with confusion written across his innocent face. "Dad always taught me that actions speak louder than words," Rebecca replied, her laugh bright and sharp as broken glass. She glanced at Marcus, and something passed between them. A look of shared understanding that excluded everyone else at the table, especially me. Some people express love through grand gestures. Others. She gestured dismissively at my pathetic lottery ticket, leaving the sentence hanging like a noose. I held the paper steady, though my hands wanted to shake with rage and humiliation. Every eye at the table was on me, waiting for my reaction. "I appreciate the thought, Rebecca. I really do." "Oh, it's just a little joke, Dad," she said, with a wave of her perfectly manicured hand, nails paid for with money I'd given her for emergencies. "But seriously, when you hit the jackpot, I expect my 50%. After all, I'm the one who bought it." Marcus chuckled, the sound low and satisfied like a cat with cream. Perhaps next Father's Day, Stephen will surprise us all with something more substantial. The afternoon sunlight streaming through my windows highlighted every uncomfortable expression around my table. Martha's fork froze halfway to her mouth. David's wife Jessica studied my family photos on the wall with sudden, desperate intensity. Even Tyler, usually lost in his digital world, looked up with the kind of confusion that comes from witnessing adults behaving badly. These cruise tickets, Marcus continued, fanning them out like playing cards in a winning poker hand, represent 3 weeks touring the Mediterranean. First-class accommodations, private balcony suite, all meals at specialty restaurants, personal butler service, the kind of experience that creates memories worth treasuring. I nodded, my throat so tight I could barely breathe. Sounds wonderful. It is wonderful, Rebecca agreed, her voice taking on that dreamy quality she used when talking about expensive things. Marcus has always been there for us financially. He helped us buy our dream house in Riverside Estates, pays Tyler's private school tuition at Whitmore Academy, even covers our membership at the country club. He's earned something truly special. The lottery ticket felt like it might disintegrate in my grip. I remembered the double shifts I'd worked at Morrison's garage, the overtime hours fixing transmissions and rebuilding engines until my back screamed in agony, all to pay for Rebecca's college education. The nights I'd fallen asleep in this very chair, too exhausted to make it to my bed after 16-hour workdays spent earning money for her textbooks, her sorority fees, her emergencies, that always seemed to involve shopping. Well, I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper, I hope you both enjoy every moment of that cruise. Oh, we will, Marcus said, slipping the tickets back into their expensive box with ceremonial care. This is how families should treat each other, with genuine generosity and proper respect. The conversation moved on to other topics, Tyler's baseball games, Martha's new job, David's promotion, but I remained frozen in place, staring at the $3 piece of paper in my trembling hands. The same amount I used to spend on ice cream cones during our father-daughter dates at Peterson's parlor, back when Rebecca was small enough to sit on my shoulders, back when I was her hero instead of her embarrassment. After what felt like hours, they finally left. Car doors slammed outside like gunshots, engines roared to life, and voices faded into the evening air until all that remained was the suffocating silence of my empty house. I sat at my dining room table, still clutching that worthless lottery ticket, watching the last rays of sunlight disappear behind my neighbor's fence. The house settled around me with familiar creaks and sighs, sounds that had comforted me for 30 years, but now felt like the groaning of something dying. I looked around at the modest furniture I'd bought piece by piece over the decades, the careful decorations I'd arranged for a Father's Day celebration that had turned into my public humiliation. The lottery ticket lay forgotten beside my empty coffee cup the next morning, a cruel reminder of yesterday's betrayal. I stared at my laptop screen, numbers swimming before my tired eyes as I performed my monthly ritual of reviewing bank statements, a habit that had kept me financially stable through 4 decades of careful living. My finger traced down the familiar list of transactions, utility bills, grocery purchases, the modest amount I'd spent on Father's Day dinner ingredients. Everything accounted for, everything expected, until I reached a line that made my coffee turn to ice in my mouth. I blinked hard, certain I was hallucinating from stress and heartbreak. The amount stared back at me, unchanged and undeniable. My hands shook as I cross-referenced the date with my calendar. Last Thursday. I'd been nowhere near a travel agency last Thursday. I'd been at home watching television and trying not to think about how lonely my life had become. The realization hit me like a physical blow to the chest. Rebecca still had authorized access to my account, a precaution I'd set up years ago after her mother died, in case of medical emergencies or if something happened to me. I'd completely forgotten about it. She'd stolen from me to buy her stepfather a gift, my money, my 40 years of careful saving and sacrifice. My phone felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds as I dialed her number with trembling fingers. Each ring echoed in my quiet kitchen, mixing with the sound of my own thundering heartbeat. "Hi, Dad." Her voice carried that particular tone of forced patience she used when I interrupted her busy, important life. "Rebecca, I'm looking at my bank statement." I fought to keep my voice steady, professional. "There's a charge for over $15,000 from premium travel services." Silence, then a laugh, light, dismissive, utterly without shame. "Oh, that. I bought Marcus his cruise. He deserves something beautiful for once in his life." The casual admission hit me like a slap. No guilt, no apology, just matter-of-fact acknowledgement of theft. You took $15,000 from my account without asking." "I didn't take anything, Dad," she said, her tone shifting to that defensive pitch I remembered from her teenage years. "I used family money for a family gift. You wouldn't have spent it anyway. It's just sitting there collecting dust." "Rebecca, that's theft." My voice cracked on the word. "You stole from me." "It's not stealing when it's family money," she snapped. "Marcus has always been there for us financially. He helped us when we needed it most. This is just returning the favor." I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles went white. "I'm your father, Rebecca. I raised you. I worked myself into the ground to pay for your education, and Marcus helped us move beyond all that." She interrupted coldly. "He's shown us what real success looks like, what it means to be generous, to live with dignity, to give meaningful gifts instead of—" She paused, and I could practically hear her dismissive shrug. "Instead of $3 lottery tickets." The cruelty in her voice left me speechless. This was my daughter, my little girl who used to crawl into my lap during thunderstorms, who'd cried on my shoulder when her mother died, who'd once called me her hero. "Dad, are you still there?" "I'm here," I whispered. "Look, I know you're upset, but think about it rationally. Marcus deserves this recognition. He's successful. He's contributed to our family's well-being in ways you never could. He deserves acknowledgement for everything he's accomplished." "And what about everything I've accomplished?" The words came out broken, desperate. Another pause. When she spoke again, her voice was colder than winter. "You did what fathers are supposed to do, Dad. Marcus went above and beyond. There's a difference." The line went dead, leaving me staring at the phone while the dial tone buzzed in my ear like angry wasps. I set it down with shaking hands and looked around my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd made Rebecca's breakfast every school morning for 12 years, where I'd helped her with homework until midnight, where I'd taught her to bake cookies for her mother's birthday. I walked to my bedroom and picked up that crumpled lottery ticket from my nightstand. The $3 joke she'd thrown at me like scraps to a stray dog. Even this pathetic gesture had been bought with my own stolen money. The irony was so perfect it was almost funny. Almost. Instead of laughing, I crumpled the ticket in my fist and marched to the kitchen trash can. The paper made a satisfying thud as it hit the bottom, joining the coffee grounds and empty cans that represented my simple, apparently worthless existence. 3 days had passed since I'd taken control of my finances and removed Rebecca's access to my accounts. 3 quiet days of morning coffee, simple meals, and the kind of peace that comes from knowing you've finally protected yourself from those who would harm you. On Friday evening, I was stirring leftover soup on my ancient stove when loneliness crept in like fog. I flipped through channels without really watching. A nature documentary about eagles, a cooking show featuring elaborate desserts I'd never attempt, a news program discussing politics that felt irrelevant to my small, shrinking world. Then I landed on the local lottery drawing. "Good evening, Ohio. Welcome to tonight's Powerball drawing, where we have a rollover jackpot of $120 million. I almost changed the channel immediately. The last thing I needed was a reminder of Rebecca's cruel joke. But something about the announcer's cheerful voice made me pause. Maybe it was the absurdity of it all. Here I was, being called a selfish miser for protecting my modest retirement savings, while someone was about to win more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. "Tonight's winning numbers are—" The announcer's voice took on that ceremonial tone reserved for life-changing moments. 7, 14, 23, 35, 42, and the Powerball is 18. My hand froze on the remote control. Those numbers sounded familiar, disturbingly familiar. I grabbed a pen from my coffee table and scribbled them on the back of an envelope as the announcer repeated them with practiced precision. 7, 14, 23, 35, 42, and Powerball 18. My heart began racing before my mind fully caught up. I knew those numbers. I'd seen them recently, stared at them long enough in anger and humiliation to burn them into my memory forever. The lottery ticket, the crumpled piece of paper I'd thrown away in disgust 3 days ago. I stumbled to the kitchen, my legs unsteady beneath me, my breath coming in short gasps. The trash can sat innocently by the counter, filled with the debris of solitary living, coffee grounds, empty soup cans, food scraps that told the story of a man eating alone. I plunged my hands into the mess, digging through banana peels and soggy paper towels, searching desperately for a small piece of paper that might change everything. My fingers found it near the bottom, stuck to the side of a yogurt container like some kind of miracle. The lottery ticket, stained with coffee grounds, wrinkled beyond recognition but still readable. I carried it to the kitchen sink with trembling hands and carefully rinsed off the worst of the debris. Under the fluorescent light, I unfolded it with the care of an archaeologist handling ancient treasure. 7, 14, 23, 35, 42, Powerball 18. Perfect. Every single number matched. I collapsed into my kitchen chair, staring at the damaged ticket in absolute disbelief. The $3 joke that Rebecca had thrown at me like scraps to a dog. The gift she'd bought with my own stolen money, then claimed half ownership of before tossing it aside like garbage. It was worth $120 million. I called the lottery hotline with fingers that wouldn't stop shaking, following the automated prompts to verify the winning numbers. The mechanical voice confirmed what I already knew but couldn't quite believe. The winning Powerball numbers for tonight's drawing are 7, 14, 23, 35, 42, with Powerball 18. The jackpot amount is $120 million. I hung up and looked around my modest kitchen with completely new eyes. The outdated appliances that I'd been too proud to replace, the worn linoleum floor I'd walked across for 30 years, the simple wooden table where I'd eaten thousands of solitary meals. All of it suddenly felt surreal, like a movie set about to be struck and replaced with something entirely different. The lottery ticket lay on my table, still damp from its rescue from the garbage, still creased from the force of my angry disposal 3 days earlier. Rebecca's voice echoed in my memory like a curse. When you win, remember, half belongs to me. I barely slept that night, alternating between checking the lottery ticket for the 100th time and staring at my ceiling in the dark, trying to process what had happened. By morning, I'd convinced myself it had to be a mistake, a hallucination brought on by stress and heartbreak. But the numbers remained the same, and the ticket, despite its journey through my garbage, was undeniably real. The Ohio Lottery Commission offices in downtown Columbus were more impressive than I'd expected. Glass and steel reaching toward gray March clouds with security guards and an atmosphere of serious business that made me feel out of place in my simple clothes. Mr. Matthews? The lottery official, a professional woman named Janet Chen, smiled warmly as she examined my battered ticket through a magnifying glass. This is quite a story. You found it in your trash? Threw it away in anger, I admitted, my voice hoarse from a sleepless night. My daughter bought it as a Father's Day gift, but the circumstances were complicated. Janet nodded without judgment, placing the ticket under some kind of specialized scanner that hummed with electronic precision. We see all kinds of situations here, Mr. Matthews. The important thing is verification. And I'm happy to tell you that this is indeed a winning ticket. The words seemed to echo in the sterile office space. I gripped the arms of my chair, afraid I might float away. However, Janet continued, our verification process takes 48 hours for prizes of this magnitude. We need to confirm the ticket's authenticity through multiple security measures, prepare all the legal documentation, and arrange for the payout process. I nodded numbly, signing papers and providing identification, barely processing the cascade of information about taxes, payment options, and publicity procedures. By the time I left the lottery office, my head was swimming with figures and legal terminology that felt like a foreign language. But one fact remained crystal clear. I was worth $120 million. I'd been home less than an hour when Rebecca's BMW screeched into my driveway with enough force to leave tire marks on my modest asphalt. She burst through my front door without knocking, her face flushed with excitement and barely contained greed. "Dad, I heard about the lottery," she practically shouted, her designer heels clicking against my hardwood floor like gunshots. "Someone at Marcus's office knows a person who works at the Lottery Commission. She saw your name on the winners list." I remained seated at my kitchen table, the official lottery paperwork spread before me like evidence in a trial. The documents felt more real than anything else in my life right now. "Hello, Rebecca." "Don't hello me." She practically vibrated with manic energy, her eyes bright with the kind of excitement I hadn't seen since she was a child on Christmas morning. "Do you realize what this means? We're millionaires. Remember what I said on Father's Day? Half belongs to me." "That was a gift, Rebecca." My voice came out calmer than I felt, steadier than I'd hoped. "You can't take back a gift." Her expression shifted like a storm cloud passing over the sun, the excitement giving way to something harder and more calculating. "We had an agreement, Dad. Everyone at that dinner heard me say it. Witnesses, legal witnesses. You threw that ticket at me like garbage," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. "You bought it with money you stole from my account. It was never about sharing anything." "Stole?" Her voice pitched upward to a near shriek. "I used family money for a family purpose, and now you're trying to cheat me out of what's rightfully mine." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw a complete stranger. The little girl who used to climb into my lap for bedtime stories had been replaced by someone I didn't recognize, someone whose first thought upon hearing of my incredible fortune was how much of it belonged to her. "The ticket was a gift," I repeated, each word measured and final. "Whatever your intentions, whatever you said in jest, it became mine the moment you placed it in my hands." "I'll sue you!" She slammed her manicured hand on my table, making the lottery papers jump like startled birds. "I'll prove that ticket belongs to me. I'll take you to court and make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are." "And what kind of man am I, Rebecca?" She paused, her chest heaving with rage and desperation. For just a moment I saw something flicker across her face. Recognition, maybe, or shame. But it passed quickly, replaced by cold, calculated hatred. "The kind who steals from his own daughter," she spat, her voice dripping with venom. She stormed out as dramatically as she'd arrived, her parting shot hanging in the air like smoke from a battlefield. I listened to her car engine roar to life and fade into the distance, then looked down at the official documentation confirming my lottery win. $120 million. More money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. And all I felt was tired. I woke the next morning to the sound of my phone buzzing incessantly on the nightstand like an angry wasp. 15 missed calls, 18 text messages, and a cascade of social media notifications that made my stomach lurch before I was fully conscious. The first Facebook post had appeared at 6:47 a.m., timed perfectly to catch people starting their day with coffee and morning news. Urgent. My father has stolen my lottery ticket and is claiming the entire jackpot for himself. This is the same man who cut off my access to family money and publicly humiliated me last week. The ticket was my gift to him, with the clear understanding that winnings would be shared equally. This is financial elder abuse in reverse, when elderly people become so obsessed with money that they'll cheat their own children. Please share this post. I need people to know the truth about what's happening. The post included a photo of me from last Christmas, looking serious and stern in my holiday sweater, carefully chosen to make me appear cold and miserly. Below it, comments were already accumulating like digital wildfire. This is disgusting. How can a father do this to his daughter? Lawyers need to get involved immediately. This is theft, plain and simple. I know this family. The daughter has always been generous and kind. The father has always been weird about money. Team Rebecca, no way should some greedy old man keep money that belongs to his daughter. But Rebecca hadn't stopped with Facebook. Her Instagram featured a tearful video of her sitting in her car, mascara running down her cheeks as she spoke directly to the camera with the skill of a professional actress. I don't usually air family business like this, but I'm desperate. My own father has stolen my lottery ticket, literally stolen it, and now he's claiming the entire $120 million for himself. I bought that ticket as a Father's Day gift. I jokingly said, half is mine, because that's what you do with family, right? You share. You take care of each other. But apparently my father heard that as a legal challenge instead of a daughter's love. Marcus had coordinated his own campaign across LinkedIn and Facebook, his posts carrying the weight of professional credibility. Witnessing financial elder abuse is devastating, but reverse elder abuse, when elderly individuals become obsessed with money to the point of betraying their children, is equally damaging to families and communities. My wife is heartbroken by her father's greed. The lottery ticket was purchased as a gift with clear verbal agreements about sharing, yet he claims exclusive ownership. This behavior destroys families and tears apart the social fabric of our community. My phone rang again. My sister Martha. Stephen, what in God's name is happening? My neighbor just called asking if you really stole Rebecca's lottery ticket. Social media is going absolutely crazy. I explained the situation as simply as I could, but even to my own ears it sounded complicated and suspicious. Yes, Rebecca had bought the ticket. Yes, she'd made jokes about sharing winnings. Yes, I had actually won. No, I didn't believe I owed her anything. But Stephen, Martha said gently, she did buy it for you. Doesn't that count for something? With money she stole from my account, I reminded her, my voice hollow with exhaustion. By noon, the story had gone viral in our small corner of the internet. Local Facebook groups buzzed with heated debates about family loyalty, legal obligations, and moral responsibilities. The neighborhood app next door featured angry discussions about the greedy lottery winner on Maple Street. I made the mistake of reading comments on Rebecca's posts. This is absolutely disgusting. How can a father do this to his daughter? I hope karma gets him. What goes around comes around. The daughter should lawyer up immediately. This is theft, plain and simple. I've known this family for years. Rebecca has always been generous and kind. Her father has always been strange about money. Team Rebecca all the way. Some greedy old man shouldn't keep money that rightfully belongs to his daughter. Marcus's professional network had mobilized too. Colleagues from his investment firm shared his post with serious commentary about family values and financial ethics. Their shared social circle, people I'd known for years, publicly supported Rebecca's version of events. I closed my laptop and walked to my kitchen window, looking out at the neighborhood I'd called home for 30 years. 3 neighbors stood near my mailbox, clearly discussing my situation. When they saw me at the window, they scattered like guilty children caught gossiping. My phone buzzed with texts from unknown numbers. Channel 6 wants to interview you about the lottery controversy. Can you call us? Columbus Dispatch seeking comment on family lottery dispute. Legal representation available for lottery ticket disputes. Free consultation. I turned off my phone and sat in my quiet kitchen, surrounded by the official lottery paperwork that confirmed my incredible fortune. Outside, my neighbors whispered and speculated, their judgment delivered through social media comments and carefully maintained distances. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was worth $120 million and I'd never felt more alone in my entire life. The morning light filtered through my kitchen window as I spread printed copies of Rebecca's social media posts across my table like evidence in a criminal trial. Each comment, each share, each supportive response felt like another nail in the coffin of my reputation and dignity. My landline phone rang, cutting through the oppressive silence with its old-fashioned mechanical bell. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but something about its format suggested a business line. "Mr. Matthews, this is William Morrison, Marcus's father." The voice was measured and professional, carrying the kind of natural authority that came from years of boardroom negotiations and high-stakes business deals. "I believe we need to talk." I gripped the receiver tighter, my knuckles going white. "I'm not sure what there is to discuss, Mr. Morrison." "There's quite a lot, actually." A pause, then. "Could we meet this morning? Say Murphy's Diner on 5th Street, 1 hour. Murphy's Diner was a modest family restaurant where I sometimes went for their Saturday morning special, the kind of unpretentious place where Marcus would never be caught dead, with his taste for expensive restaurants and exclusive clubs. "May I ask what this is about?" I managed. "The lottery ticket," William said simply, "and what I personally witnessed on Father's Day." My heart hammered against my ribs like a caged bird. "You were there?" "I was indeed. 1 hour, Mr. Matthews." The line went dead, leaving me staring at the phone in complete confusion. Marcus's father wanting to meet about the lottery ticket could only mean trouble. Maybe they were coordinating their legal strategy, building a case against me. Or perhaps William was coming to pressure me into settling with Rebecca to make this whole nightmare disappear with a simple financial transaction. I almost didn't go, but curiosity won over caution and fear. Murphy's Diner occupied a corner lot that had hosted restaurants for 50 years with red vinyl booths, checkered linoleum floors, and the kind of strong coffee that could wake the dead. I spotted William immediately. His tailored navy suit stood out like a peacock among sparrows in the humble establishment. He rose when he saw me, extending a well-manicured hand in greeting. "Mr. Matthews, thank you for coming." We slid into a booth near the window, where morning light illuminated the deep lines around William's eyes, lines that spoke of years of hard work and careful thought. The waitress, a motherly woman named Dolores, who'd been serving coffee here since I was middle-aged, poured 2 cups without being asked. "I witnessed the entire gift exchange on Father's Day," William began without preamble, his voice carrying absolute certainty. "Every word, every gesture, every moment of what actually happened." I studied his face carefully, searching for signs of deception or manipulation, some hint of the trap I was sure he was setting. "Rebecca is claiming we had an agreement about splitting any winnings." William's expression hardened like concrete setting. "That is simply not what happened. I watched your daughter throw that lottery ticket across the table with a dismissive laugh. There was no negotiation, no agreement, no verbal contract of any kind. It was a gift, pure and simple, given with contempt, but a gift nonetheless." He pulled out his phone, scrolling through Facebook with the efficiency of someone who'd built a business empire in the digital age. "What my son and daughter-in-law are doing is unconscionable. They're destroying your reputation with outright lies, and I cannot stand by and watch it happen." "You're Marcus's father," I said carefully, still not quite believing what I was hearing. "Why would you go against your own son?" William's laugh was bitter as winter wind. "Because I raised him to have integrity, honor, and basic human decency, and he's forgotten everything I tried to teach him. This lottery situation has revealed something about Marcus that deeply disappoints me, and frankly disgusts me." He showed me his phone screen, where he'd begun typing a lengthy Facebook post that would change everything. "As a witness to the Father's Day gathering at Stephen Matthews' home, I feel compelled to address the current social media controversy surrounding the lottery ticket. I personally observed Rebecca Morrison purchase and present a lottery ticket to her father as a Father's Day gift. There was no negotiation, no agreement about sharing winnings, and absolutely no conditions attached to the gift. The ticket was thrown across the table with visible contempt, but it was nonetheless a gift freely given. Mr. Matthews is the sole and rightful owner of that ticket and any winnings it may have generated. The current social media campaign against him is based on completely false information, and I cannot remain silent while a decent man's reputation is being destroyed by members of my own family. You don't have to do this, I said quietly, hardly believing what I was reading. This will cause problems in your family. Yes, I do have to do this, William said firmly, his finger hovering over the post button. My son has forgotten what it means to be a man of honor and integrity. Perhaps public embarrassment will remind him of the values I tried to instill in him. He pressed post, and immediately his phone began buzzing with notifications like a swarm of electronic bees. Within minutes, comments appeared from people in Columbus's business community, colleagues who knew William's reputation for absolute honesty and fair dealing, people whose respect meant something in this city. This changes everything. I breathed, watching the tide of public opinion shift in real time as William's post was shared and commented on by dozens of influential people. William pocketed his phone and looked at me directly, his eyes sharp with conviction. Mr. Matthews, I built my business on integrity and truth. I cannot watch my son destroy that legacy with lies and manipulation, no matter how much money is involved. We sat in comfortable silence for several minutes, watching normal people go about their Saturday morning routines, families ordering pancakes, elderly couples sharing the newspaper, teenagers texting while their parents tried desperately to engage them in conversation. Life continuing normally while my world transformed around me. The truth has a funny way of surfacing, William said finally, his voice thoughtful. Sometimes it just needs the right person to speak it clearly. We shook hands outside the diner, his grip firm and reassuring. As he walked toward his black Mercedes, I remained by my modest sedan, feeling something I hadn't experienced in weeks. Hope. 2 weeks later, the phone call I'd been both anticipating and dreading finally came. Mr. Matthews, this is Janet Chen from the Ohio Lottery Commission. Your verification process is complete, and we'd like to invite you to our formal check presentation ceremony tomorrow morning. A ceremony? I asked, still processing the magnitude of what was happening to my quiet life. We offer winners the choice between a private meeting and a public presentation. Given the recent interest in your case, we thought you might prefer the transparency of a public ceremony. I thought about Rebecca's vicious social media campaign, about the whispered conversations that followed me through grocery stores like shadows, about the neighbors who no longer made eye contact when I walked past their houses. Yes, I said with more conviction than I'd felt in months. I'd like the public ceremony. Excellent. 10 o'clock tomorrow morning at our Columbus headquarters. There will be media present, so dress appropriately. And Mr. Matthews, congratulations. This is going to change your life forever. That evening I laid out my best clothes with the care of a soldier preparing for battle. The navy blue suit I'd bought for my wife's funeral 8 years ago. A crisp white shirt that still held the sharp edges of professional pressing, and the tie Rebecca had given me for Christmas 5 years back, before everything changed, before she became someone I didn't recognize. The lottery headquarters buzzed with activity when I arrived the next morning. Television crews adjusted lighting equipment with professional precision, photographers tested angles and checked their cameras, and lottery officials bustled around with clipboards and official documents, all preparing for what they called a significant media event. I felt like an actor who'd wandered onto someone else's movie set, completely unprepared for the role I was about to play. Mr. Matthews. Janet Chen approached with a warm, genuine smile. Ready to officially become a multimillionaire? The ceremony itself was surprisingly formal and dignified. A backdrop featuring the Ohio Lottery logo, an oversized ceremonial check that took 2 people to hold properly, and enough camera flashes to light up a stadium when Janet announced me as the winner of the $120 million jackpot. This is certainly unexpected, I said into the microphone, my voice carrying better than I'd hoped across the crowded room. I plan to use this blessing responsibly, to help others who truly deserve it, to pursue dreams I'd put aside for too long, and to live with the kind of dignity that makes a person worthy of good fortune. The questions from reporters came rapidly like bullets from a machine gun. How does it feel to win? What are your plans for the money? Will you quit working? Any comment on the family dispute? I answered as honestly as I could, focusing on gratitude and responsibility, rather than the betrayal and heartbreak that had brought me to this moment. Then, through the crowd of media personnel and lottery officials, I saw them. Rebecca and Marcus pushed through the gathering like sharks cutting through water, her face flushed with desperate determination and barely controlled panic. She wore the kind of expensive outfit she reserved for truly important occasions. A designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly pension, jewelry that sparkled under the television lights, makeup applied with professional precision to hide the desperation in her eyes. "Stop," she called out, her voice cutting through the professional atmosphere like a knife through silk. "That's my ticket. We had an agreement." Security personnel moved immediately, but Rebecca's voice carried over their intervention with the power of pure desperation. "Everyone here needs to know that ticket was mine. He's stealing from his own daughter." The cameras, which had been focused on me and the ceremonial check, swiveled toward the commotion like predators sensing blood in the water. This was the kind of dramatic confrontation that television news lived for. Family conflict, money, betrayal, all the elements of a perfect story. "Ma'am, you need to step back from the ceremony area," a security guard said firmly but politely, his hand moving to guide her away from the microphones. I looked directly at Rebecca, feeling calmer than I had in months. The chaos swirling around me felt distant, like watching a storm from inside a safe house. "Rebecca, please don't do this here. Not like this." But she was beyond reason now, gesticulating wildly as Marcus tried to pull her back, her voice rising to a near shriek. "I bought that ticket. I said half was mine. Everyone at that dinner heard me say it. This is theft." A reporter thrust a microphone toward me like a weapon. "Mr. Matthews, can you comment on this family dispute?" "The ticket was a Father's Day gift from my daughter," I said clearly, my voice steady despite the chaos unfolding nearby. "Mr. William Morrison, who was present at the dinner, has already confirmed the circumstances of that gift on social media. That's all there is to it." "What do you plan to do with the money?" another reporter asked, shouting over Rebecca's continued protests. I thought about Rebecca screaming in the background, about the months of manipulation and betrayal, about the years I'd spent enabling her worst impulses out of misguided paternal love. "I plan to help others who deserve it," I said, each word chosen carefully. "I want to start a business I've dreamed about for years, and I intend to live with the kind of integrity that makes a person truly worthy of good fortune." The ceremony concluded with handshakes, official paperwork, and congratulations from lottery officials. Meanwhile, Rebecca and Marcus stood beside their BMW in the parking lot, arguing with each other in increasingly heated tones. I could see Marcus's gestures growing more animated, his voice rising to match hers as their relationship fractured under the weight of their own greed and desperation. I walked to my car carrying the ceremonial check and official documentation that made me one of the wealthiest men in Ohio. As I drove away, I glimpsed them in my rearview mirror, still arguing beside their expensive car, their perfect facade crumbling in real time. For the first time in months, I smiled. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with the newspaper spread before me, reading about my lottery win in black and white print, when I heard the familiar sound of a car door slamming outside. Through my window, I saw Rebecca walking up my driveway, but her demeanor was completely different from yesterday's aggressive public confrontation. She moved slowly, almost hesitantly, her shoulders slumped in what appeared to be genuine defeat. Her expensive clothes were wrinkled as if she'd slept in them, her usually perfect makeup was smudged, and her hair hung limp around her face. Instead of her usual bold entrance, she knocked softly on my door, 3 gentle taps that sounded almost apologetic. I opened the door to find her eyes red-rimmed and puffy, tears streaming down her cheeks with what seemed like genuine remorse. "Dad, could we talk, please?" Her voice was barely above a whisper, broken and vulnerable in a way I hadn't heard since she was a small child. Despite everything that had happened, my paternal instincts stirred. "Come in, Rebecca." She followed me to the living room, perching on the edge of the couch like a frightened bird ready to take flight. Her hands twisted in her lap as she looked around the modest space that had once been her childhood home, her eyes taking in the family photos, the worn furniture, the simple decorations that told the story of our life together. "I'm so sorry about yesterday," she began, her voice cracking with what sounded like genuine emotion. "I was just overwhelmed and terrified. I wasn't thinking clearly." The tears came then, streaming down her cheeks with practiced precision. Not the angry tears of yesterday, but soft, vulnerable tears that tugged at my heartstrings. "Marcus has been pressuring me so much about money lately," she continued, her voice breaking beautifully on every other word. "Our finances they're worse than I told anyone. Much worse. I didn't know who else to turn to. You're the only family I have left." I settled into my recliner, maintaining careful distance between us. "What kind of financial trouble, Rebecca?" "We're about to lose everything, Dad." She looked up at me with eyes that seemed to hold all the pain in the world. "Our house, our cars, Tyler's education, everything. We owe almost $500,000 and the bank has started foreclosure proceedings. I've been lying awake at night, having panic attacks, trying to figure out how to keep our family together." She painted a devastating picture. Sleepless nights filled with terror, panic attacks that left her gasping for breath, desperate attempts to keep up appearances while their perfect world crumbled around them. Marcus's investment firm was failing, she claimed, losing clients and hemorrhaging money faster than they could count. The country club membership they couldn't afford to cancel, Tyler's private school tuition that was draining their resources, the lifestyle they'd built on borrowed money and false promises. "I was too embarrassed to ask for help before," she continued, wiping her eyes with a tissue that seemed to appear from nowhere. "You know how proud Marcus is. He'd rather die than admit we need help. But Dad, I'm desperate. I don't know what else to do." "You've always been there for me before," she said, reaching across the space between us to touch my hand with fingers that trembled perfectly. "When Mom died, when I was struggling in college, when Tyler was born, you never let me down. I just need help one more time. Just enough to save our house and get back on our feet." "How much, Rebecca?" $2 million would solve everything," she said quickly, as if she'd rehearsed the number 1,000 times. "I know it sounds like a lot, but it's nothing compared to what you won. You'd still have over $100 million left. We could pay off the house, settle the debts, give Tyler the education he deserves. And I promise, Dad, I swear on Mom's grave, we'd pay you back every penny with interest." The simplicity of her request was breathtaking in its audacity. $2 million, a sum that would have represented 40 years of my pre-lottery income, delivered as casually as asking to borrow $20 for gas. "Rebecca," I said gently, my voice carrying a sadness that came from deep understanding. "I've heard these same promises before." Her expression shifted slightly, confusion flickering across her features like clouds passing over the sun. "What do you mean? You stole $15,000 from my account without asking. You publicly humiliated me on social media with lies and manipulation. You tried to claim ownership of my lottery ticket through legal threats." I kept my voice calm, factual, free of anger. "Now you want me to reward that behavior by giving you $2 million. This is different." The tears came faster now, more desperate and frantic. "I was wrong before. I admit that completely. But we're talking about losing everything, Dad. Our house, our entire life, Tyler's future. You have the power to save us and you're just going to watch us fall. You need to learn to solve your own problems, Rebecca. I can't keep rescuing you from the consequences of your choices." The words hung in the air between us like a death sentence. Rebecca's face transformed as I watched, the mask of vulnerability slipping away to reveal something harder and more calculating underneath. "You're really going to do this?" she asked, her voice taking on that familiar edge of barely controlled rage. "You're going to let your own daughter lose her house while you sit on $120 million like some kind of dragon guarding treasure? I love you, Rebecca, but I won't enable your destructive choices anymore." She stood abruptly, pacing to the window and back like a caged animal. Fine, fine. But don't expect to be part of Tyler's life going forward. Don't expect Christmas visits or family dinners or phone calls when he graduates high school. The threats came faster now, each one designed to hit my deepest fears about isolation and family loss. You'll be just another lonely old man who chose money over family. No grandchildren at your funeral, no relationship with future generations. You'll die alone in some nursing home because you were too selfish to help your only child when she needed you most. If that's your choice, I said quietly, meaning every word, I'll have to accept it. The finality in my voice seemed to shock her into silence. She stared at me for a long moment, perhaps recognizing for the first time that her manipulation toolkit had finally met its match. You've changed, she said, her voice cold with bitter disappointment. Money has made you cruel and heartless. No, Rebecca, money has made me free. She stormed out without another word, her footsteps echoing on my front walkway as she marched to her car with visible fury. Her tires squealed as she peeled out of my driveway, leaving black marks on the asphalt that would remind me of this moment for months to come. I stood at my front window, watching her drive away with a mixture of profound sadness and overwhelming relief. The little girl who used to fall asleep in my lap while I read her bedtime stories was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize and couldn't save. Someone I no longer wanted to save. I walked to my kitchen to make tea, my movements calm and purposeful. For the first time in years, my home felt truly peaceful. 3 months later, I stood in my empty living room, boxes stacked around me like monuments to a life I was leaving behind. The house looked smaller somehow, diminished by the absence of furniture and memories. I held my phone in my hand, scrolling to Rebecca's contact information one final time. With steady fingers, I selected, block this number. Some bridges, once burned by betrayal and greed, weren't meant to be rebuilt. The drive to Dayton took 2 hours through rolling countryside that spoke of new possibilities and fresh starts. In this new city, I would be simply Stephen Matthews, new resident, not the lottery winner from the news, not the man whose family drama had played out on social media for everyone to judge. My new house sat on a quiet street 3 hours from Columbus, far enough away that unexpected visits would require real commitment and planning. The neighborhood was filled with modest homes owned by working families, people who understood the value of honest labor and simple dignity. Henderson's classic auto restoration had been for sale for 8 months when I first walked through it. The owner, Tom Henderson, was ready to retire after 40 years of bringing dead cars back to life. When I walked through the shop, inhaling the familiar scents of motor oil, steel polish, and honest work, I knew I'd found my purpose. "You sure you want to take on this much work?" Tom asked, gesturing at the project cars filling his bays, classics in various stages of resurrection, each one telling a story of American craftsmanship and dreams deferred. Most folks your age are thinking about slowing down, maybe playing golf or traveling. I ran my hand along a 1967 Mustang's fender, feeling the smooth potential beneath layers of rust and neglect. "I'm just getting started, Tom." Within a week, Henderson's became Matthews Classic Auto Restoration. I hired 3 local mechanics, good men who took pride in their work, and quietly established the supporting Single Fathers Foundation, remembering my own struggles after my wife's death, understanding how difficult it could be to raise children alone while working multiple jobs just to survive. Evenings in Dayton were peaceful in a way I'd forgotten was possible. I could walk through my neighborhood without whispered conversations following me like shadows. The local diner served coffee without a side of gossip about my personal life. People knew me as the guy who restored classic cars, not the lottery winner from the scandal. "Settling in okay?" asked Helen, my neighbor, bringing homemade cookies and genuine kindness. "Neighborhood's quiet, but we look out for each other here." "Quiet is exactly what I was hoping for," I told her, and meant it completely. The shop became my sanctuary and my salvation. Working alongside younger mechanics who reminded me of myself at their age, I rediscovered the deep satisfaction that comes from solving problems with your hands rather than your checkbook. We restored a 1955 Chevrolet Bel Air to mint condition, every chrome detail perfect, the engine purring like a contented cat. When the owner came to pick it up, he wept openly at seeing his father's car brought back to life. I understood his tears completely. I thought about Rebecca sometimes, but without the sharp pain that had once accompanied her memory. The lottery money hadn't changed who I was. It had simply revealed what I'd always been underneath years of enabling and misguided parental guilt. I was a man who believed in honest work, in treating people with respect, in building relationships based on something more substantial than financial transactions. My phone rang occasionally with calls from unknown numbers that I suspected might be her, but I let them all go to voicemail. Whatever she wanted to say, whatever new crisis she claimed to be facing, I was no longer interested in hearing about it. On a Thursday evening in late summer, I locked up the shop after completing the restoration of a 1969 Camaro SS, a beautiful machine that would bring joy to its owner for decades to come. Driving home through my adopted city, I passed the community center where my foundation's plaque read, "Supporting strong families through difficult times." I parked in my driveway and looked up at the emerging stars, thinking about the strange journey that had brought me here. Somewhere in Columbus, Rebecca was living with the consequences of her choices, dealing with whatever financial problems were real and whatever crises she'd manufactured for sympathy. But that was no longer my concern or my responsibility. What I could control was building something meaningful with the time and resources I'd been given. Every restored car was a piece of American history brought back to life. Every foundation grant was an investment in fathers who were struggling the way I once had. Every day of honest work was a vote for a world where character mattered more than connections, where integrity trumped influence. The lottery ticket that had started this whole journey now hung framed in my office. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder that sometimes the most valuable gifts come disguised as garbage, and the most necessary lessons come wrapped in the painful paper of betrayal. I walked into my peaceful home, made myself a simple dinner, and sat down to plan tomorrow's work. Outside, my neighbors were living their honest lives, raising their children with love and discipline, building communities based on mutual respect rather than mutual exploitation. I had finally found where I belonged. 1 year later, I received a letter forwarded from my old address. The envelope was expensive, embossed with the logo of a high-end law firm, but the message inside was surprisingly simple. Mr. Matthews, we represent Rebecca Morrison in the matter of your lottery winnings. Our client is prepared to settle this dispute for the reasonable sum of $50 million, payable immediately. This generous offer represents less than half of your winnings and would allow both parties to move forward without the expense and publicity of a protracted legal battle. Please respond within 30 days. I read it twice, then walked to my office and placed it in a frame next to the original lottery ticket. Some people, I realized, never learn. Some people will spend their entire lives believing that other people's success somehow belongs to them, that family relationships are just another form of business transaction. But I had learned something far more valuable than how to win the lottery. I had learned how to be free. Outside my office window, one of my mechanics was carefully installing a rebuilt engine into a 1970 Plymouth Cuda. The work was precise, methodical, honest, the kind of labor that built both character and community. I never responded to the lawyer's letter. Some conversations aren't worth having. If you enjoyed this story of betrayal, justice, and redemption, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps us bring you more incredible true stories that prove sometimes the best revenge is simply living well.